Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Rob Browne here with you on this Monday morning edition of Sidelines. Got a great show in store for you today. Lineup: Jason Caldwell, Auburn Undercover kicks off in the first segment. Also going to be talking with Franz Beard, GatorBaitMedia.com. The coach, John Brady, will try again with us talking LSU basketball, SEC basketball. We'll get into a good discussion about who are the top teams in the country this year. And there are some really good teams around, not just in the SEC. Big East, of course, is making a really strong push. But I think in the SEC, you can make a claim that there are some outstanding teams. Tennessee and Auburn, two of them, and Alabama went to Knoxville and lost by 20 Saturday. Stuff is happening in the portal so fast. Our executive producer, Brendan Martin, is sending me stuff fast as I can get it. About Jameer Grimsley switching to Florida, quarterback. Man, if you take a look at what is going on in the portal with Ohio State, it'll make your head spin. Nick Saban leaving Alabama. We'll get into that. Caden Proctor going back home to Iowa. Unbelievable that this all happened a week ago. Wednesday, the 10th of January. Hard to believe, 2 days after the national championship. But let's get started with Jason Caldwell. Jason, man, getting tickets to an Auburn basketball game is one of the hardest things that you can try to do. The atmosphere is unbelievable. We watched the game Saturday against Ole Miss, and that was what could have been the game 4 years ago. Had the officials not missed a double dribble call, most likely it would have been Auburn playing Texas Tech, coached by Chris Beard. Boy, in this match, were you surprised at how just Auburn ran away with that, and it was really never even in doubt?
Yeah, a little bit. I was expecting it to be a little bit closer than that, but Auburn's defense was really the key early on. Now they made a bunch of shots, but they were allowed to kind of continue. I thought Ole Miss's defense was not very good. Auburn was able to get a bunch of open looks and do those things. But, this team just kind of just keeps coming in waves, and that's been the key for them so far. They don't have an NBA superstar, in my opinion. They don't have one of those guys on this team. Heck, who knows? They might not even have an NBA player. I think one of these guys will probably play, but it's not a surefire guarantee. Aiden Holloway's the guy that'll have a chance, and there's some other guys. There's no surefire guarantee guy, but it reminds me of watching San Diego State, Florida Atlantic last year. Heck, even like that UConn team, they had some players, but there wasn't a lottery. I may be wrong, I don't think, but you go. Now it's veteran teams that play together, understand each other. That's what this team does best. So when they line up with Kentucky and Tennessee, they're not going to look as good as those other teams. But they go 10, 11 deep. They can all play, but nobody right now is concerned about who gets the glory. And when you have one of those teams, and if they can stay that way the rest of the year, then they're going to have a chance to compete, for a long time.
Aiden Holloway, you mentioned him. He was a 5-star coming out of high school out of California. I think he was number 2 player in California. And there's a lot of 4-stars on that roster, but that's I look at the talent Bruce Pearl's going after. I mean, he's bringing in a lot of talent. But on the flip side, you look at a team like Kentucky that every year is loaded with one-and-dones. They hadn't won a national championship since 2012. And when was the last time they were in the Final Four? 7 years ago? Maybe?
Yeah, it's been a little while. It's been a little while that, Deke had a run and lost to North Carolina in the Final Four, but it's been a while for them too. And those programs haven't had as much success in recent years. Now, this Kentucky team's really good. They'll have a chance to go and make a run. But it has been teams that have had veteran presence. It's been teams that have had and guard play is the key. It's hard to get. It's kind of like you think about it when we're listening to, talking to baseball coaches. They go, hey, it's hard to get old on the mound.
Yeah.
Because if you're good enough, then that guy's going pro out of high school. If you're good enough to be one of those guys, it's hard to get old at guard. It really is. It's hard to develop being, you can go get transfers and be old. It's hard to get, because if they're good enough to be at Auburn or Kentucky or one of those places and they're a guard, then they're probably not going to stay around a long time.
No.
And so if you can get guys to buy in and stay and go, look, I need a little bit more seasoning, and we'll see. You know what a guy like Hayden Holloway does, or Trey Donaldson, those guys do. I think it would behoove both of those guys to play another year if they want to have a future in professional basketball, just to kind of continue developing. But you don't ever know nowadays. You have another 5-star coming in into Todd Pettiford at guard. So had people ask us, how do you keep all three of those guys happy? Like, dude, we don't know what the roster will look like next week, much less next year. Who knows what it's going to happen? But basketball team that has a lot of character, playing hard, playing together, and that's usually a pretty good sign.
Yeah, and you look at Chris Beard starts off 13-0, and of course you get into SEC play, it's gonna beat everybody up. But when you look at this team, the heart and soul of it, Dylan Caldwell. He's so much fun to watch. Isn't he Rodney Garner's cousin? And he absolutely loves. I've had a lot of people texting me about him that he is what college sports are all about. This guy absolutely loves. He's at the football games in the student section. Of course, he's a student, going crazy. He just promotes the brand. I don't know what his NIL deal is, if he's got anything or whatever, but whatever this kid gets his degree in, and if he plays pro basketball, great. If not, his NIL is being and representing his brand, Auburn. And there are a lot of Auburn people out there that would hire this guy just because they're going, I love his attitude. He's what we're supposed to look for in college athletes. Would you agree? Or I mean, you know him. Yeah. I don't know him.
It's the unfortunate side of things that guys lose now along the way. You lose being at a place for 3 or 4 or 5 years and developing relationships and finding a home. And most of these kids aren't going to find that now, because you don't find that as a transfer guy. Now you can find a home for a little bit, and it can feel good, and it'll be a place you can go back to. Yeah. But it's not going to be a place like that where you go, that guy's Auburn. That's who he is. And you can 20 years from now, Dylan Caldwell is going to be a guy that people go, I remember that guy. I remember him because he stayed around, and he. Yeah, that's not going to be the face of transfer world now. It's just not going to happen. And the unfortunate side of it, I was talking to somebody the other night, and they had absolutely a very good point. College athletics is still, and I believe will forever be, about the jersey and not the name.
Yeah.
The professional sports is about the name. Now, you got people in Boston that cheer for the Celtics. It doesn't matter what. The average run-of-the-mill person is cheering for the Lakers now because of LeBron. Now, there's a bunch of old Lakers fans that have been cheering for the Lakers for years. Yeah. But there's a lot of people going, well, I'm cheering for wherever Kevin Durant is, that's who I'm cheering for. Or, the college athletics, I don't believe is going to be that way, because it's still such a shorter time frame that it still matters where you are more than who you are. And that's a guy that understands that.
I totally agree with that. Ivan Mazzell was on the show a couple of years ago, and he made a point. College, it's all about the laundry. And you can say, well, colleges, these guys, the fans, you hear it a lot of people saying college sports are ruined. I don't agree with that at all. I think what it's doing is it's a guy like Dylan is going to be a rock star because he's showing how much he loves the school. And I think it's also Bruce Pearl and the culture he's built. When you listen to Andy Burcham and the post game, the interviews with these players, with Bruce Pearl, I mean, they're just dripping with enthusiasm, love, and passion for Auburn in this case. And it's great to hear that. You could not even think about pulling against them or getting, you want to win every game, but They absolutely are passionate about everything they do. Talked about Stephen Pearl, the scouting job he did in getting ready for the Ole Miss game. Another player, and you mentioned Donaldson and Aiden Holloway. I mean, there's 11 guys that are playing a lot. And again, they don't care who gets the credit. And you mentioned there's no Chuma Okiki on there. There's no Isaac Okoro on there. There's nobody like that, but there's a lot of talent. And I mean, how far can this team go of Bruce Pearl's previous 9 teams, really in the last 5 years? Where does this one stand, in your opinion?
Yeah, I don't know that it's, again, I don't know that it's as talented 1 to 6 or 7 as a lot of these other teams have been. The thing it is it's really deep. And like I said, it's a group of guys that go, hey, you know what? I don't care. We're winning. I'm gonna do my part. Janai Broome averages the most minutes on this team, and it's 23.4. It's remarkable. I mean, Jalen Williams averages 23.1, Aiden Holloway 22, Chad Baker-Mazar 20, KD Johnson 17.5, Trey Donaldson 18.4, Denver Jones 20.6. You go Dylan Caldwell, Chaney Johnson, Chris Moore, Lior Berman. You go, I mean, you know, nobody's going, hey, I need my 38 minutes. And it's such a big deal for them to be able to go, you know, we're just going to keep rolling, go in, and they cheer for each other. I think because of that, in this climate, it's such a different world. This is not 1992 where you had, hey, let's go Bobby Hurley, Grant Hill, Thomas Hill, Christian Laettner, and Antonio Lang at Duke that all played together for 4 years. And they're really talented too. You don't have those teams in college basketball anymore. Now, having people that have been together, you add a couple of key transfers, but having that veteran presence is such a big deal. And like I said, it's shown up the last few years. Heck, it's shown up in football. You know, it's shown up in a lot of sports where you go, I mean, you have that older presence. The young teams are really talented, but there's something to be said for that experience.
Well, next question really is about the portal with Auburn. You pointed out throughout football season, you want to get to a point where you're not having to go get 20 guys out of the portal. You're getting 6 or 8, maybe 10, because your high school talent is projecting to be so much better. Let's talk about the guys Auburn's got in. Auburn Undercover, every day I'm looking at it constantly. It's updating the guys leaving, the guys coming in. So let's get a report card on that.
Yeah, he lost a couple of guys that were guys, obviously I think Javarius Johnson to me is still the guy that you go. That's probably the one. Donovan Kaufman, a recent addition. Cam Riley, guy that played a lot of football, is a recent addition. But we'll see what happens. Those guys. The problem is now is you look and go, the window to go somewhere else is closing pretty quickly. Auburn, technically, the last day to get into school was the 17th. They said, look, we had a little bit of a leeway, but I don't think you're going to start having an extra 2 or 3 weeks leeway to get guys in. Yeah. So the portal is closing up pretty quickly. But you think about Auburn, adding the most recent guys. Antonio Kite is just an unbelievable athlete from Anderson High School that was at Alabama, 4-star prospect out of high school, a long corner that 6'1.5" or so. But he was a 2-time 4A Player of the Year in basketball in Alabama. So this guy that has tremendous athleticism that continues to develop as a DB. And Jaron Thompson, from Texas, has played a ton of football as a safety. And I think that's an important guy when you think about all these young guys Auburn has at safety and kind of getting them into the mix. That's an important one as well. But, we've seen them add, Percy Lewis, big offensive tackle from Mississippi State, Trill Carter, big defensive tackle from Texas. They did a good job, again, of, kind of finding those pieces. And people keep throwing. They go like, got to have offensive line. And I'm like, what? Guys, they're in better shape on the offensive line than they've been in almost a decade right now. And this is a unbelievably strong 2025 class. And so you start going, okay, feel pretty good about your group you have. You got some guys to bridge the gap a little bit, and you're going to shoot to sign one of those Georgia, Alabama offensive line classes this year where you go out and sign 5 or 6 legitimate high school offensive linemen, 3 or 4 tackles out of that group. That's what you're shooting for in 2025. And you put yourself in a position to be able to do that. So, yeah, could you go like, yeah, you'd love to had this, or this, but I think they go, hey, look, we feel good about the additions there for them. If you're Auburn, and you go, now you see what happens after spring, because there's going to be another portal window, and there's going to be a bunch of more guys in the portal. What do we need? Who can we go get? That's what's coming up here in a few months.
Yeah. Well, Derek Nix, I know he's from Etowah County, Gadsden. He's been at Ole Miss for 25 years or 22.
16 years at Ole Miss, was at Southern Miss before that. Mm-hmm.
Okay. He's been in Mississippi that long.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of the Joe Witt of Ole Miss. And now he's back at Auburn. Talk about that potential impact, not just for recruiting in Mississippi, but him as a coach and what his role will be.
Yeah. Got a chance to talk to him this weekend, and to watch him kind of work the room a little bit before a basketball game. He was there. They introduced both him and Charles Kelly at the basketball game the other night. And so when I think about Derek Nix, I talk to people who have coached with him and been on his staff with him. And they go, look, this guy's a great football coach. And that's not the first thing you hear a lot of times. A lot of times the first thing you hear about is this guy's a great recruiter. Yeah. He's this and this. And they're like, no, this guy's a great football coach. And I think he's going to be heavily involved, because the one thing that when I look across in this day and age too, there's so much movement in coaches too. And the one thing that a lot of times you fall back on is familiarity. Going, look, I need to know, and I need to know exactly what that guy's going to do. And he needs to know exactly what I expect. And I think now you look at it from an Auburn offensive perspective, and you go, Derek Nix has worked with Hugh Freeze. Ken Austin has worked with Hugh Freeze. Jake Thornton has worked with Hugh Freeze. Ben Agamawa has worked with Hugh Freeze. You got guys that understand, okay, this is what we want as an offense. And there's a lot of people that disagree, going, look, and probably the delivery might have caught people off guard, but Hugh Freeze is, if nothing else, direct and painfully honest about what he does.
Yeah.
And this year he said, look, I have to spend time doing this. We have to be able to increase the talent level. Did it potentially hurt them some in the X's and O's games of an offense? It probably did.
Yeah.
But you look at the flip side of what can happen when you don't do that. Look at the roster, just depletions that have happened at other places. And when you don't have I know the time is an issue, but timing was an issue last year when Auburn hired Hugh Freeze. He said, look, this is the most important thing we got to do. We got to go build the roster up, and we got to make sure the roster is good. And it cost them some this year. But you put yourself in a situation where going, am I short-terming it, or am I long-terming it? Hugh Freeze has said, I want a long-term build something at Auburn. We'll see. He said, hey, we'll see if it's right. We'll see if that's the right formula. The right formula, maybe go out and just to go Ohio State and Ole Miss. Let's just go load up and buy everybody out of the portal and see what happens.
Yeah.
But I still think in the long term, year after year, that doing it the way they're doing it, and bringing a guy like Derek Nix in helps to continue that build where you got a guy that you absolutely trust and understands what you want on offense. Yeah.
I mean, knowing Mississippi like he does, knowing the SEC footprint, and being from Alabama, I think that Derek Nix hire is one that's going to pay off in a big way. Charles Kelly's from down in Ozark, walked on, played at Auburn like 86 through 90, was a walk-on. I've been watching this guy for a long time on other teams' sidelines, like Florida State and Alabama, Colorado this past year. And I think he was the 24/7 National Recruiter of the Year. Jason, hell, you really do. You put more miles on the ground, more time in going and seeing. You're everywhere, watching these high school players, junior college, you and the whole staff at Auburn Undercover. So I think you're qualified to say this. Is Charles Kelly not just a great recruiter, but also a damn good football coach?
Yeah, I mean, you don't get to where he is and coach.
Yeah,
a long time with Nick.
so.
A long time with Nick Saban's coaching staffs. I mean, he won a national championship as a defensive coordinator at Florida State against Auburn.
Yeah, I remember that.
So yes, I mean, he's a good football coach. But you're right, recruiting people. That's what he does. I mean, I've probably seen him on the sidelines in the last 5 to 10 years more than any other coach in Alabama. And he was at Alabama for a while doing that, but he's also at Florida State. Heck, I saw him 2 or 3 times last year on the sidelines while he was at Colorado in Alabama high school football games. So this is a guy that all these coaches know. They know who he is. Yeah. And, got watch him the other night reunite with Benji Rowland and Jeff Berger for the basketball game and see some of his old teammates and how happy they are that this is a guy that's back at Auburn. I think that pays dividends when you start connecting with the Coach Dye version of Auburn and having those guys have a connection to the program with Charles Kelly there. Yeah. I think that brings familiarity and some of those guys back too, which is a big deal.
Well, the May family, who I love them. There's 5 boys, and you got Guy and Beverly have, Biddy and Bo Coffee there in Auburn, and Joe May and Waller May. They over at Waller's house back after the Georgia game, Joe and all of us, Joe May, were talking. He knows Charles Kelly, and he couldn't say enough good things about him because I said, man, I wish Auburn could get him back. And he said, he's always said Deion's been very good to him, and that's just the way he is. He's a loyal guy, but he's always wanted to be back at Auburn. I mean, this guy could not be happier probably in his life to be back at Auburn. But he strikes me as a hard-ass football coach that coaches in Alabama and in the Southern footprint will resonate and get along with. And it's not to say that other guys aren't as good, but he's got a lot of special qualities. I love what you said about, those guys getting back together. Couple of more things before you go. The recruiting class for Auburn right now is at number 7. The fallout at Alabama is crazy. Retiring January 10th, 2 days after the national championship. I don't think anybody thought Alabama would have 31 players as of a couple of days ago leaving. But what in the world is going to happen in February? Where does Auburn stand with Ryan Williams and any other surprises out there? And what's the ruling on if a coach leaves, they have 30 days to go anywhere? So it's wide open, isn't it?
Yeah, the problem is that to be able to leave, they could technically choose to go anywhere. The problem is, can they get in school and start spring practice? That's why it's actually been I think most of the guys that have gone in the portal were guys that were planning to go in the portal even before he retired. I think. Okay. I think there's been a few guys. Antonio Kite's one. There's been some. I think a lot of these guys had Isaiah Bond for one. Caleb Downs is one that probably was a little quicker. But I think the timing of this, while it wasn't great, it was a smaller window for kids to be able to go to school somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Had this happened in December, people were like, oh, it would give Alabama more time to go get portal guys. Yeah, it would have. But also given these guys an opportunity for all of them to have left if they wanted to. I think you would have seen more guys leave had the timing been a little bit earlier. Like I said, you would have had an opportunity to go get. But Alabama doesn't have a ton of room in the portal anyway. From a roster number standpoint, I think we'll see more movement after the spring. I really do. How much more, we'll see. There'll be some guys that go, no, I love it. Kalen DeBoer's a really good football coach. He's bringing in a staff that especially from an offensive standpoint, he knows those guys. We'll see how the connections go. That's always the one you don't know. You don't know how they connect with guys. from a recruiting standpoint. Here's what we do know. It's going to be a much different Alabama roster. Will it still be a good roster? Yes. Will it be the roster that we've seen at Alabama for the last 16, 17 years? I don't think so. Does that mean they can't win? No, it doesn't. But it's not going to be as deep and talented as it's been the last few years when you put up some of the losses that they've had.
Yeah. Last question. I got a text in. What is different about Hugh Freeze now versus Hugh Freeze when he took the Auburn job that you've noticed that you can give people and say, hey, this is happening and it's a good thing?
Yeah. I think probably understanding how much had to be done. When you come to Auburn, you go, okay, it's Auburn. And then you get here and you go, whew, that's not what Auburn was that I remember. That's how, I had somebody ask me, Alabama's lost all these people in my mailbag the other day. Said, who took over a worse spot now, Freeze or Kalen DeBoer? And I'm like, it ain't even close. Like, Alabama's roster is still miles ahead of, they could lose 25 more guys. It was, like I said, it was the worst roster of my lifetime that he took over it. I believe. Now, not what they put on the field this year, but what he had when he got here in December of 2022. That was, yes. But I think the realization is that, look, it's going to continue to take a lot of work in building this roster up, because that's the most important thing. Said it for years. Nobody will ever convince me otherwise, that talent acquisition is the most important part of this. And I've had high school coaches going, well, they can't worry about recruiters. You got to go get coaches. And I like to go, well, what was your record last year? Okay. You went 3-7. Can you not coach anymore? No. Well, ain't got as good a players. Yeah, that's it. You don't, having great players doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win a bunch of games, but not having them pretty much guarantees you won't. Yeah.
Jason, always appreciate your time on here with us. And just in this segment, I've probably picked up on 7 things that are like, wow, that's potent stuff. And I think the big one is these coaches like Charles Kelly, they're everywhere. How many times you've seen them on the sidelines? And when you say that, it carries a lot of weight because you're the one out there seeing these guys more than anybody. Tell people how they can follow you, keep up with all the great work that you do, because folks, Auburn Undercover, it is a 24, it's nonstop. And believe me, in today's world, stuff happens all the time. So thank you.
Yeah, there are no, somebody asked me when's the downtime now, and I said, I don't know. Whenever we find it, we'll let you know. Not much of that anymore, but you can check us out at Auburn Undercover, part of the 24/7 network. Like I said, lots going on. Still, defensive coordinator, talk out there with Auburn. I would expect that sometime here in the next 48 hours or so to shake itself out. And for Auburn, there's been no rush to got to have a guy right now. I think they've just kind of, hey, let's make sure we get the right fit. So find all that information there at auburnundercover.com, and also follow me on Twitter at @ITATJason.
All right, Jason, thank you so much. We'll do it next week. Be right back with Coach John Brady and Franz Beard after this quick commercial message on Sidelines.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe. because none of God's children are for sale.
Welcome to Rumble, bringing half boxing, half strength, and 10 rounds of fire. Pull up, say what's up to our studio team, check in and grab your gear. Don't have gloves, don't have wraps, don't worry, we got you.
You think you better than battle?
Find your starting spot. B means bag, F means floor. Make your way to the studio, find where all the magic happens, give Jab a little love on the way in, or snap a pic for the gram. Tap in with your trainer and get ready to bring the thunder. Eyes up at your Rumble trainer, fitness pro, DJ, MC extraordinaire. We'll walk you through our 6 punches in our pre-class.
All right, Rob Browne back here with Coach John Brady, formerly at Samford, LSU in the Final Four, and Arkansas State. Now the color analyst on the LSU Basketball Network. And Frank Duffy was down in New Orleans the last few days, sending me a lot of good pictures, and said you were going to be back on with us Monday. We had some – I'm going to tell you, we had Kevin Skarbinski, the only basketball writer in Alabama history, sports writer, period, to be inducted into the U.S. Basketball Writers Hall of Fame. He couldn't even get through Saturday. The whole spectrum in the Birmingham metro area was down. But thank you so much for coming back with us. Franz Beard, GatorBaitMedia.com, on here with us as well, and talking a lot of football and basketball, portal stuff in the first segment. And while we're doing this next segment, there'll probably be several more players enter the portal. It's happening fast. It's getting to be like the stock market. The dang ticker's running and stuff's happening. But, Coach, I wanted to get started talking to our executive producer, Brendan Martin, this morning before the show. Topics we're going to get into SEC basketball. And we've started getting into this Friday. LSU is one of the best stories out there. I love it that – had a close loss to A&M, but, man, there's a lot of fight in LSU. And then I'm watching the SEC Network last night, the buildup for South Carolina and LSU Thursday night. That's in Baton Rouge, I believe. And they were saying Shaq won't even be able to get in. And the other person said, I think Shaq will be able to find his way into that game. But the Kim Mulkey effect, LSU, that's a powerful brand. I mean, it's a really value there. But let's talk about your basketball team that you get to be courtside every game and where they're going. And then we'll get into more SEC basketball with Franz in a moment.
Well, wait a minute. Before you start here, you mentioned 3 of my favorite people. You got Skarbinski, Frank Duffy, and you got Franz Beard on there. 3 of my favorite people, man. I tell you, you're all over the place.
I'm trying.
We got home represented today. We have Macomb as well represented as it is. The only thing missing is Larry Prey.
Yeah, we're not telling secrets, man. All them cats said, let's be professional here. Keep this above board. No, but LSU's played well. You know, we started playing better the second half when we got beat in Houston by Texas. Our second half was really good.
Yeah,
Jalen Cooks helped our team. And really, if you're going to criticize the coach when you're not playing well, you've got to compliment him when you are doing well. So Matt McMahon's done a nice job of bringing this team along. We don't have a collection of great players. We don't have the MVP of the league. I'm not sure if we have a first-team all-league player, but collectively as a group, we're playing better together. Our biggest issue, one of our issues, is we don't rebound the ball very well. We at A&M, when we won the game, we allowed them 14 offensive rebounds, but only 3 second-chance points. The other night when we lost at home to A&M, we gave up 24 offensive rebounds that resulted in 27 second-chance points. Mm-hmm. Second-chance points in that game the other night when we lost close to A&M was 27-0. LSU did not get a second-chance point the whole game. And our Achilles heel probably is in the rebounding department. And when we rebound well, we have a chance. But the other night, they just killed us on the offensive glass.
Yeah, and you talked about that. When you shoot a lot of three-pointers, Coach, and always defer to you. You've forgotten way more than I know. You've got to be great at rebounding out on the perimeter, and you've got 0 second chance points. That's you're not going to beat it. And it still only lost by what, 2?
Wow, it was 3 or 4. Yeah. It was.
Wow.
I've never seen that before. 27-0 in second chance points. But the thing about A&M, I always think good teams know what their weaknesses are, and I think there's a strength when you know what you're deficient in. A&M knows they can't shoot. They have 2 guys that shoot 70% of their balls. But what they do, because they know they can't shoot it, they go rebound it. And sometimes they'll get 3 straight offensive rebounds, and although they go 1 for 3 or 1 for 4, they really hadn't missed because it's all on their end. So, Buzz does a nice job of getting his team to really play with a tremendous amount of effort. Now, I respect that when any coach can do that on a consistent basis.
Yeah,
I think that they, instead of hullabaloo Canuck, they should play Kung Fu Fighting though as their team theme song, because when they bring out the razors and the switchblades when they play, because if you play the Aggies, you are going to leave with it's death by 1,000 cuts. Is what it is. Tennessee, it's like getting bludgeoned with a billy club. Like the police are coming there and whacking you over the head every time. And I like basketball, and I got to admit, and John, I think you might even agree with this, because we were not exactly, the two of us were not exactly the tallest or the biggest or the strongest in our day when we played. You were a lot better than I was, but the game was more of a finesse game, and now it's become, whatever the officials feel like letting it be on that particular day. You go up to Knoxville, and it seems that the Zebras let it be. It's sumo wrestling should have as much contact, and the same thing when you go to College Station. They let the game get so daggum physical, and it's like I saw part of the LSU game, and so much of it was they came there with the idea that they had 3 guys crashing the board who are going to be extremely physical with you. If you're not ready for that, you're not going to beat them.
Yeah. Coach, Frank was talking about you and Chris Blair on that LSU basketball network. How much fun is that job compared to when you were a coach?
Well, here's how I'll begin that statement. Is it's a lot more fun all the time. Yeah. Coaching was fun some of the time when you win. Yeah. But the big difference is the pay's not quite as good. Yeah. The responsibility is not like it is, and the anxiety's gone, and all of that is out. But I've really enjoyed that. That's been a nice thing to be able to do, to come back to LSU and be involved in that regard. And I give that credit to Will Wade. He brought me back in there and he wanted me there, and I appreciate that. And Matt McMahon stayed with me, and working with Chris Blair is really fun. I mean, we get along. We do things off of the air together. We go to dinner and those kinds of things. So, and he's really good at what he does. And a lot of times, he lets me talk a little bit. Sometimes those guys that do play-by-play, they don't let the old analysts get in there a little bit, but he lets me talk, and we've got a good way with us, and I really enjoy it. The LSU people have been really nice to me coming back.
Well, I mean,
they should have never gotten rid of you, and I mean, I'm telling you, and this is not just friend to friend, because I remember when you went 16-0 pitching in the Macomb Little League, the best lefty they've ever seen in Macomb, and back in the day. But you were better than Jimmy Watts. My goodness. But I'm real about it. They the success they had immediately afterward was all with your players, right. And they haven't been the same since you were there. And that's why you're so good at what you do, John. And I love listening to your commentary, because you've been there. You know how it is to sit in a kid's living room and get down on your knees and beg, Mama, please let her come here. My job, my I got kids too, and they got to go to college. And if you let them come here, I'll be paid, and my kids can go to college.
Yeah,
and it's like that. I mean, I'm kind of blowing it up a little bit, but it's like that because you're dealing with kids that are different than they were when you and I were growing up. When you and I were growing up, a scholarship was a big deal. We were going to go to college and get to play basketball. You went if I remember correctly, you went to Belhaven, which was up there in Jackson. And then you went to work. Then you went to work for Richard Williams, who was the coach at Morgantown Junior High School back in the day. My goodness, but it's a different game, but you remember those parts of it, and you know what it's like to make the decision in the last second of the ball game. Do we shoot? Do we hold it? Do we foul a guy? We can't shoot a three. The dumbest thing in the world. Why? You got a foul to give your. You got to foul the guy. I mean, you got a 3-point lead. Foul him. I can't. But this is why you're good at what you do, and among analysts. You're there. I put you right up there with the late Mike Pratt. Mike Pratt was a friend of mine. That
good guy.
What a good guy, and what a great analyst he was. And I put you right there with him. And that's not. I'm not schmoozing now. I'm just being realistic. I mean, that's what you bring to the game.
Well, that's what I keep telling Coach, that you want to be on SEC Network, because you are. Speaking about job security, if you were the play-by-play guy at LSU, now I grew up listening in Memphis as a kid, always an Auburn fan, but loved LSU because I could pick them up at night, AM 870 WWL New Orleans. My dad was 3 weeks from being an LSU football player as a preferred walk-on kicker. Then a spot in architecture at Auburn opened, and he took the train to Auburn. Back, I'm talking 1949. You took the train. But I always loved listening to LSU sports on the radio. So John Ferguson, what a voice, and then Jim Hawthorne. I remember being in college at Auburn, seeing Jim Hawthorne out at dinner the night before the Auburn LSU basketball game. Guy was one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. So Chris Blair has been there a while, but he's probably got another 25 or 30 years at least. So same with you, but I would love to see you in the SEC studios. They don't have a coach. They're good. I like Ron Slay. I think he's hilarious. They're good. It would be great having you in there. Franz, you just said something. You know what it's like to be in a living room begging, I got to eat too. My kids got to go to college. You mentioned the anxiety of being a coach. I mean, I woke up about 4 this morning thinking about stuff that I've got to do. It's different now, but what's it like as a coach? Just even though you're getting paid, whatever, do you put a to-do list by your bed every night to try to compartmentalize and organize what I can control, what I can't control? Talk about that. Inside the mind of John Brady.
Well, it's funny you bring that up. Every evening I would try to write down what I have to do the next day, because so many things come at you, and you got to prioritize what the time you have to do the things you need to do. Mm-hmm. The most important thing really always in season, off season, and whatever is your players and your team and the mental state that they are in. And that's what I always try to pay attention to. Where's my team now? And it changes, depending on how you play the next game, your mental state of your team, the confidence level, and all those things that go into winning can change. And you have to understand that and react to that as a coach. Mm-hmm. And the only way to communicate that is individual meetings, team meetings, and then the practice. Get them in the practice. And I found that a lot of players get over winning and losing as soon as they get back on the floor. And And I've always approached that you can't let the previous game affect how you play the next game. I don't care if you win it or lose it. Every game is really a new season in its own compartment. So I try not to let, if we played well the next game, it wasn't a guarantee we'd play well next time out. If we lost the game, I never tried to let it affect the thought process of our team going into the next one. So, but the players and the team were with me 24/7 all the time. And I know it's probably more difficult now because of all the social media and everything else that's coming at the players and you know, handlers and advisors and all those things that I didn't really have to deal with. So whatever the coaches make this year, in this day and time, I think they earn it because of all the things that they have to deal with that are outside of just coaching at practice and coaching the game.
Yeah, I think that's a great take because, I mean, you look at social media alone, it never stops. That ticker is going, and used to be you worried about getting a call in the middle of the night. One of your players maybe was a guest of the city in jail or something like that for something they did stupid. And now it's that they've transferred, you know, and that's the thing that's so crazy. But we need a steady hand. We need Marshall Dillon in the studio. And not that I want you to leave LSU, but it would be cool. And, you know, we have guys on from SEC Network that I really, really, really like. Chris Doring, Roman Harper on the football side. Basketball-wise, they need a steady hand in there. I think it'd be cool to have you in there hosting the players.
Well, I don't know if it's me, but all of those guys that are talking now, all those players, they were playing when I coached. So I know all those cats.
See, that's what I'm saying.
I know them all. And it would be fun. You know, it would be fun to do. But, you know, I don't think that would be something they'd have to, you know, decide to do. But I enjoy the banter I have with those guys when they do show up and do our games. And because they all played when I was coaching. And it's good to see them, really.
Well, it's cool to see you with a picture of you with Dale Browne and Winifred E. Wimp Sanderson from Florence, Alabama. I mean, that's what I love about it is that you remind people of, look, we all have our team. We all pull for our team. But here we got a Gator. We got an Auburn Tiger. We got an LSU man. And that's what makes this so much damn fun. Franz, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Here's the thing that is so different these days and times. And it was getting that way when you were coaching, John. But back before, you didn't worry. You know, now kids come up, you go to like the Nike Peach Jam, and these kids have been flown in to Augusta. They come up in these state-of-the-art buses from their hotel to play a basketball game, and you got 86 bazillion coaches lining the floor there, and a few of the zebras too. I always sit with Doug Shows because Dougie is the best. I'll tell you what, he is he and now Mike Eads has retired, but those two guys, and you always know in the first 5 minutes of the game how they're going to call it. You always know in the last 5 minutes how they're going to call it. So I love those guys. But you go to a Nike Peach Jam, and these kids show up in these buses, and they're pampered. And half the people who are watching in the stands they have are people with a vested financial interest in this kid. And, you know, John hit the nail on the head. You got to deal with the handlers, everything. It's a whole lot different when we were coming up, when it was just, you know, I could write a story about a kid who was recruiting, and I went straight to his mama. That's where I got all my information. Brad Beal's mama, who had an orange Nike swoosh tattooed to her left ankle and a blue one tattooed to her right ankle. You know, hey, she was a Gator all the way. And that's who I'd go to for my information about Brad and who was recruiting him. He was going to be a Gator for the whole time because she bought in with Billy Donovan. I remember when John was recruiting a guy named Chandler Parsons. And
thought I had him.
It was
Billy knocked me out the saddle.
I remember that guy. He played for the Grizzlies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was a guy. He played with Nick Calathis in high school at Lake Howell, and he was your basic late bloomer. He kind of exploded on the floor between his junior and senior year in high school. He really exploded on the floor at the Peach Jam, and it carried over to Orlando to the AAU Nationals. And we all knew how good the guy was going to be, when all of a sudden Delvon Rowe, who before the microsurgery on his knees, Delvon Rowe could have gone as a junior in high school, could have gone straight to the NBA. He was that good. And Chandler lit him up for 40.
Fran, I saw Chandler, and he wasn't getting recruited heavily at all. And we jumped in there, and I offered him on the spot. I mean, first time I talked to him on the phone, I offered him a scholarship. And I told him, I said, now look, we're going to help you recruiting, because when LSU gets involved and they know we've offered you, they're coming back around to watch. And Pearl was at Tennessee. Bruce got involved at Tennessee. And then Donovan took a second look and said, I think I'll take this guy. And he turned out to be, really, really good and had a good pro career. And that was one of the things I wish we'd have got him. He'd have probably prolonged my coaching career.
He would have. You're talking about a 6'10" kid who could run the floor, could shoot. And the thing about it is I hate to use the word Larry Bird in there, because there's only been one. But Chandler had those kind of characteristics that, okay, my shot's not working today, I'll rebound and play a little defense. Or my teammate's hot, I don't have to shoot, I'll just get him the ball, etc. You're talking about a guy who's the SEC Player of the Year, who averaged 12 points and 8 rebounds a game. And, there were guys that averaged 17, 18, 19 a game. But even Calipari said, how's this guy? This guy's glue. And that's what you saw. But get back to it. He was not heavily recruited. Now, these days and times at the Peach Jam, he'd come in there and he'd have 17 handlers with him, and all of them with their hands out, My God. Some of these kids come into college and it's like, okay, well, where's my limo?
Well, it would be hard to coach kids like that for sure. I mean, if you had your own kids like that, I always ask people, are you giving more money to your school's NIL collective than you are your own children or to your own church? It is a different world. Here's a question for you, Coach. These things come in, and I'm just trying to paraphrase them because typing and looking at y'all same time. Can you explain the offense that teams are running? And I think it's kind of nowadays we go back to where everybody wanted a 7-foot center, Benoit Benjamin. I mean, I grew up, we all did, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Wilt Chamberlain, that big guy in the middle, 2 forwards, 2 guards. Now there's a lot of 6'8" tweeners out there. You can be any size. I go to the Grizzlies games, about 25 or 30 a year. You watch Kevin Durant play. You watch LeBron James play. They might have 40, 50 points and doesn't even look like they had 10. It's just they practice so much, obviously. But this offense, everything, you get it inside, they kick it back out. Everybody's going for the 3, analytics and all. What do you call that offense, and how different is it than what you were coaching?
Well, if the question was what offense is everybody running, my first response is I have no idea. I mean,
it's just
to be honest with you, it all looks the same. But I did watch the other night. I did watch South Carolina, and they run some pretty good offense. I like what Rick Barnes does. He always tries to run offense. Connecticut last year, when they run to the final championship, I thought they run good offense. And I still think, though, you can throw it to the post and win games. I don't think you have to shoot 30 threes a game or 28 threes a game, regardless of what the numbers say. my deal was I had this guy named Ronald Dupree, which I love, and he's coaching in the pros now. He was all league for us at LSU, and one night he was like 1 for 11, and he came to a timeout and he says, "Coach, I'm open." I said, "Ron, don't shoot the ball again. Get a layup." He said, "Well, Coach, I'm open." I said, "Well, you've missed 9 in a row. Of course you're open. They're not guarding you." So, you got to. I think it's still a judgment call of field as with the coach on the sideline. But I think most of the offenses I see are like what you alluded to. It's perimeter oriented. It's look for the 3 first. We'll throw it inside second. But I think the best threes are the inside out threes, not the one pass 3 that doesn't go in. I think ball reversal, catching rhythm, shoot a 3, inside out threes with your feet set, collapse the defense a little bit. I think those are good threes to take, but I'm still not sold on the fact, regardless of what numbers say and what they read all these things about this and that. I don't think 25 to 33s a game is the answer. I still think you can be selective when you shoot a 3-pointer if you have those kind of players, but I still think you can win throwing the ball inside and getting fouled.
It was a better game. I'll be honest with you. It was a better game without the 3-point shot. Although, I understand why they did that. That gave a team that doesn't have any size a chance to win a game if they got good shooters. But it was a better game back when it was without the 3-point shot.
I got. Let me say this. I was in a discussion about that the other night. I think the game changed. The emphasize now, you get a good point guard and you set enough ball screens. The defender can't guard him if he can dribble the ball 25 seconds. You can't guard that. And that's why it's all about ball screens, dribbling more than it is passing. I think when they took the closely guarded rule out of the game, and you could have it 4 seconds and you got to pass it, move it, you got to cut to get open. The game had more of a free flow with it, in my opinion. Yeah. Now with the you can dribble the ball, get the 2 ball screens, and it puts the emphasis on a good point guard who can make plays for other players. And I think that has stagnated some of the flow of offense you used to see, as you don't see that today.
I remember, you probably remember him too, John, Al Frederick Hughes at Loyola. Al went 1 for 28 in a ball game, and he comes off the court, and the shot he made reminded me of this one Riley Kugel made in a game last week when he's going to his left, fading away, flips it up there and banks it in. And Al had a shot similar to that, and he come in after the game. He gets 1 for 28. He says, "Damn, did you guys see the one I made?"
Yeah. 1 for 28.
Yeah. He led the NCAA in scoring that year.
Yeah.
But he had a game when he went 1 for 28. Good and I liked it better when it's more of the ball gets spread around. You had a guy named Brandon Bass whose kid, I'm telling you, his kid's going to be sensational. He plays down at Windermere Prep in Florida, and his kid's already 6'6", and looks like he was cloned from dad,
Well, let me say this: if he's I've met him. He's been on campus with Brandon. He's been up here at LSU on campus a couple of times. If he's anything like his father, he is a tremendous young man.
Yeah.
Brandon Bass was the best player I had and a low maintenance player.
Yeah.
On time, class, be there, got early, stayed late. Brandon Bass was a special talent. He was player of the year in the SEC his last year here at LSU. He was also the SEC academic award.
Yep.
And you get that kind of guy on your team, man, you got a chance to win some games because what he does permeates through the rest of the players. And I was fortunate to have a couple of guys like that. And you get that going, you got a chance to be really good.
You had Brandon Bass and Big Baby at the same time, and I got to tell you what, my gosh, y'all were something tough. And
I need to ask Franz. I need to ask you a question, and Rob, you help me with this. Tell me about Florida, man. Are we good? Are we just okay? Are we on the come? Well, I can't figure them out right now, Franz. What do you think about Florida?
When they make shots, they can beat anybody, and that's the one thing. One thing about it is they run hot and cold as a shooting team, but as a rebounding team, which is LSU's weakness, they're the best rebounding team in the country. Period.
Wow.
They're leading the country in rebounding. They're they get like about a +10, +11 in rebounding margin. And on the offensive, you were talking about getting outscored 27-zip on second chance points. They beat Missouri with a 13-2 on second chance points. They out-rebounded Missouri 40-27. And Missouri's a good rebounding team, and they just couldn't hang with Florida. And so it comes down to games when they make shots. Walter Clayton Jr., terrific ball player. Florida recruited him as a safety, and he was a 4-star safety who decided to go up to Iona and play basketball. By the way, Jimmy Valvano, who used to come through Savannah when I'm working there, he was at the time at Bucknell, and he'd take us out to the Pirates' house to eat dinner and everything. And goes up to Iona and calls me up and says, "You know what?" He says, I told somebody today. They said, who are you? He said, "I'm Jimmy Valvano. I own a college." He said, "You're too damn young to own your own college." But
I own a college.
But
That's right.
I like that. Hey, look, I mean, go ahead.
Let me say this. Here's how I see the league early right now.
Yeah.
I've got a group at the top of Auburn, Tennessee, and Kentucky.
Yep.
And then I lump 3 in there, and I got Florida. Since you told me that about Florida, I got South Carolina, Alabama, A&M, and Florida kind of in a group there. I don't know what to do with Georgia yet. Then I got LSU, Mississippi State, Missouri, Ole Miss, and then I got Arkansas and Vandy kind of figuring it out at the bottom. Yeah, and I think the top 3 teams right now have kind of separated themselves: Auburn, Kentucky, Tennessee, and I think you got a wad of about 6 in there. They're trying to figure it out and see where it falls.
You got the 3 at the top who can win on the road. You got a group of about 4 that it's a coin flip whether they can win on the road or not. Those are teams like Florida that's going to have to steal. I think 9-9 gets you into the NCAA this year in the SEC. I think the SEC is that good that if you go 9-9 in the league, you're going. But that's going to mean you're going to have to steal 1 or 2 games on the road to do it. Florida got 1 the other night, and I'm looking at their schedule, and I mean, my gosh, they got to win these 2 games. They got Mississippi State and Georgia coming in this week. They've got to win those 2, because then who do you follow? Then who do you follow that up with? Well, you get Kentucky, you get the Aggies, and you get Auburn. That's your next 3 after that.
Yeah. It's tough. LSU, we played a good at home, got beat by A&M. Now we go to Georgia, to Alabama, and I don't know. We're not going to be favored in either one of those games. And if we do win or split one of them, it's certainly going to be an upset, because I think Georgia's a little better than people give them credit for, from what I've seen just on TV. Now, sometimes my opinion changes when I see them up close and personal, but on TV, I think Georgia, they put 96 on Kentucky up there, man. I mean, we can't score 96.
Yeah. Well, let me put it this way. Kentucky had them by 27 and went cruise control.
Yeah.
And, if Kentucky had kept the pedal down, Kentucky would have scored 125 points. That's how good. And this 7'2" kid, the Croatian, he's the guy that makes Kentucky, that goes from Kentucky making the Elite 8 to Kentucky making the Final 4. He is that good. He comes down the lane. The ball goes between his legs, and then he makes a behind the back pass into the corner to Antonio Reeves to shoot a three, and the ball comes in this high. Antonio Reeves, the only thing he has to do is go straight up and shoot, because you talk about the ultimate catch and shoot pass. The ball's right here. You don't have to dip it down, do nothing. I mean, you just go boom. And that's what it was. And you get a 7'2" kid who can rebound and block shots and run the floor and dribble the ball like this kid, and you add him to the kids they got, Kentucky is Final Four caliber.
Yeah, this is unbelievable. I mean, I Coach, we got to get you back on next week. We got to take a break, and appreciate you staying on long. I'm getting people saying you got to get a notepad when you're on here. You and Franz, this is true grit basketball knowledge, because your top five, you got Auburn, Kentucky, Tennessee. And last week we had Mitch Davis on here talking about top five, and he had a three-way tie for fifth with Ole Miss and Mississippi State and LSU. So basically there's 8 or 9 teams likely going to make it, but this has been awesome. I really appreciate you taking time to be on here with us, and the signal's perfect today. You're in the John Brady studio.
I figured it out, man. I got it figured out.
Benny Kimball taught us well. That's all I got to say. And his wife, I got to tell you what, best math teacher ever. I mean, she could, once we got past 4 plus 3 is 7. You lost me when all of a sudden you start throwing X's and Y's in there, and she could make that happen. But Benny Kimball was our high school basketball coach, and we had Trice Barber in junior high school.
Smart man, Coach. We're going to be watching y'all. LSU's next game are you playing Tuesday or Wednesday of this week?
We got Georgia Wednesday.
Okay, all right, and that's in Athens.
We're at Alabama.
Yeah, you're at Georgia and then at Alabama.
Yeah, right.
Okay, we're going to be watching it, Coach John Brady. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me.
See, hey, you're coming to Gainesville. We're going to eat dinner at Spurrier's.
Okay, you got it. We'll do it.
I will do. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back for more Sidelines.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Like a people in the damn air traffic tower. Hi, Rob Browne back here with you. Great stuff with Coach John Brady. Love having him come on, and he did explain both of y'all are basketball or hoop heads, as they call it. Love getting the information from a coach. And of course, Franz, you know a lot about basketball as a long time. Yeah, it's a great sport. And I think people in the SEC footprint in the last 10 years, the game has gotten so much better. But man, you ask for a top 5 from somebody like Mitch Davis the other day. Then we get the top 5 from Coach Brady today. And then you think about the Gators. They're building a program. I don't know how good Georgia is. Matt McMahon is going to have LSU. They're going to be successful. They can get athletes, but the good thing is here it is January 22nd, and there's a lot of interest in basketball. But it does look like Tennessee and Kentucky are really good, along with Auburn. Auburn doesn't have the roster talent-wise that Tennessee or Kentucky do, as Jason Caldwell of Auburn Undercover alluded to in the first segment. But they can go deep, that 6 through 11. That's probably the difference.
You can't teach tall, and Auburn has tall.
Mhm.
Okay. And that's what Florida has. Florida has tall. Kentucky has tall. Tennessee has tall. Plus they've got Dalton Connect, who Dalton Connect is their guy that can score anytime, anywhere. He's had like 5 straight games of 25 points or more. And we were talking about Florida has to make shots. Tennessee, Dalton Connect has to make shots. If he makes shots, they can beat anybody in the country. And this is the thing about the SEC right now, is those 3 teams at the top can beat anybody in the country. They really can beat anybody in the country. And I think with I can't pronounce his name, the Croatian kid at Tennessee, goodness, I would have loved to have heard Kaywood Ledford talking about that behind the back pass. Kaywood Ledford, we were talking about radio guys the other day, earlier with John was on. The greatest basketball announcer in the history of the game was at Kentucky for years. His name was Kaywood Ledford. And it was like you're sitting there at midcourt and this guy is carrying on a conversation with you, describing what's going on and making it sound so, even the tough stuff sounds so simple. And you had him, then you had Woody Durham there at North Carolina for years, who was another great play-by-play guy.
Well, Kaywood Ledford and Ralph Hacker, the Ashland Oil UK Basketball Network. I used to listen to WLW AM 700 out of Cincinnati, UK basketball. You could hear it all over the country. And it was just, so many great games. I'm an AM radio junkie, and I think if you really want to understand sports and listen to the different play-by-play broadcasts of the different schools. And you can get on these apps now. You go to any school in the country, and you just get such a deeper understanding of where they're coming from. All right, a lot of stuff coming in from executive producer Brendan Martin. Great stuff. It's fast. Let's get to some topics. Good stuff here. Great stuff. But if you're an Alabama fan, you're pulling your hair out. Alabama, Florida got Jameer Grimsley to flip quarterback from Alabama over to Florida. But I'm looking at this portal. Listen, going in here, Ohio State, what they're doing in the portal. Caden Proctor, who was the number 1 offensive lineman in America out of Iowa, longtime Iowa commitment, and he goes to Alabama, starts as a freshman. Now he's back at Iowa. As of this weekend, 31 Alabama players have entered the portal. And look here, people talking about Eli Drinkwitz as the top 5 coach after leading Missouri to an 11-win season. I don't think he's the top 5 coach. I think he's a really good coach. Lane Kiffin makes his first ever visit to Buc-ee's. Says his life will never be the same. I have to agree with him on that. We hit Buc-ee's a lot, going back and forth to Atlanta, down to Orange Beach. They got a new one in Auburn. They need one in Arkansas, Buc-ee's. I can't believe it but they didn't ever get out of the state of Texas from 1982 till 2019. They went to Robertsdale, Alabama. Collect your Buc-ee's patches, Franz, if you travel around. And but look here at this. This is more information from Brendan Martin. Look at Ohio State, friends, in the transfer portal. Caleb Downs. What are these guys thinking leaving Alabama? I could understand maybe going to another SEC school, but leaving Alabama, period, when you are the pinnacle of college football. Caleb Downs leaves Bama. He's going to Ohio State now. Julian Sayin, the quarterback from Carlsbad, California, the number 2 player in California. Alabama signed 2 of the top 4. He's going to Ohio State. Quinshon Judkins leaves Ole Miss, Ohio State. Seth McLaughlin, offensive lineman, Alabama, he's at Ohio State. Will Howard, quarterback from Kansas State, he's going to Ohio State. And Will Kasmarek, he is gone to Ohio State, the tight end from Ohio, Ohio University. But I know it's money, it's NIL, but still, Alabama, don't they have unlimited resources? The Red Elephant Club.
Well, here's the thing: is when you have a coaching change, then you extend the portal for 30 days. Okay, you're for the entire roster. That means you got kids who may not have even thought about transferring, who suddenly, because there's a coaching change, because of this, they can flaunt their free agency and get a deal. Julian saying, my goodness, he knew that he knew the situation in Alabama, and he was coming there just the same. And now he's going to Ohio State, where they got Will Howard, and he's going to sit a year, and he's okay with that. But what made the difference for him was Ohio State came in there and said, how much does it take for you to come here? And they said, how much are you getting from Alabama? We'll beat the offer. And, this is what has changed the portal. This is what changed all of college football. And I know you're a market guy, and I'll say give you a market phrase of what has to happen here. We've got to have some high-priced portal kids crash and burn.
Yeah.
It's a
Did you say Will Howard's going to sit for a year? I didn't mean to interrupt you, but Will Howard will come from Kansas State. He's going to sit for a year. But Julian Sayin is a freshman. He should be able to play immediately, correct?
Well, Will Howard will play from day one. He will be the quarterback. Julian Sayin is going up there to be a backup, which is what he would have been at Alabama. My goodness, it's not like Alabama, and not like Alabama was losing an extraordinary quarterback. And Alabama's probably going to pick up Will Rogers now, that's the other thing. The whole thing with the portal is nuts, and that leads to
insane.
And here's the deal: is what's going on with all this, and all of a sudden you got this big deal. All of a sudden, everybody's making about the divorce Florida had with Jaden Rashada. This goes back a year, and they said the NCAA is investigating. Here's the weird part about it: there are no rules. So the NIL rules are making it up as we go along, and that's what the NCAA, in its infinite wisdom, does. They make up the rules as they go along, and it's selective enforcement. My goodness, what was remember the old Jerry Tarkanian line? The NCAA is so mad at Kentucky they're going to give Cleveland State 2 more years of probation. That was. This is the way the NCAA is. So this is why I wrote today, I said, the people at the HEV, which is the Hevner Center, Florida's football complex, need to be very, very concerned right now. And the reason they should be concerned about it right now is because the NCAA could drop the hammer on Florida, or they could decide that Florida can skate. They let Tennessee skated for 238 recruiting violations. 238, and skated. You go back to 1984, and the NCAA demands that Florida fires Charlie Pell, and Florida did it. Florida should have done a Tammy Wynette and stand by your man, because they had an NFL roster. And they should have done it. This is what Michigan is doing. And this is how disjointed and how stupid what's the old line that Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana says, "Well, you're just a special kind of stupid, aren't you?" That's his big line, and that is today's NCAA. We just went from Mr. Haney of Green Acres as the commissioner president of the NCAA, and now we got Hank Kimball, the county agent.
Oh boy.
I mean,
true. That's a very good comparison. Mr. Gimbel, if you asked him what time it was, he'd tell you the time in 24 different time zones and go, "Well, which time were you talking about?" And that's what it's like. The NCAA, I believe, is going to become extinct. They're going to they're going to just no longer be around because they're so incompetent. And to take a governor, Charlie Baker, former governor of Massachusetts, and make him the head of the NCAA, dumb move. What you need is a commissioner like a Rick Neuheisel, who also has a law degree. Let him do it. You've got to get people that understand athletics, understand sports, understand what it's like to be a coach. The NCAA is absolutely all about selective enforcement. And they decide which schools. You go back into the SEC when Roy Kramer was commissioner. It was almost like, okay, how can we get rid of Alabama? And that's Alabama fans. I know a lot of them, and there's truth in everything. They felt like Roy Kramer's mission, was to take out Alabama. Who knows? But it looked that way to them. But it was a crazy time. We get that. But I'll say this with the portal. You cannot build a culture. You cannot build a team or a business. You can't have a family. If you're married, you're a man, you're married to a woman. That's how it works. Can't marry your dog. But bottom line, you're a man, you're married to your wife. You can't have a successful marriage and ever have children in a family if you don't trust her and she's running around on you. I mean, the portal right now, I think Gary Harris said this from Tide 100.9, who's on the show Thursday mornings at 8:30 a.m. Central. He's Tider Insider TV. He said Nick Saban was having the conversation with a lot of recruits in the last few years, and they would ask him, "Coach, are you going to be there all 4 years when I'm at Alabama?" And Nick Saban supposedly was saying, "Are you going to be there all 4 years?"
Yeah.
And something tells me, maybe I'm going to guess this, maybe Nick Saban met with a bunch of the upperclassmen after the loss to Michigan and just kind of to feel them out for the upcoming season. And maybe there were too many conversations about gimme, what am I getting on NIL? And I think maybe he said, I got a $17 million house I just bought in Jupiter, Florida. I've got more money than I can ever spend. I've got a nice legacy here at Alabama and in football. I'm out of here. We better watch this because we're not going to have any good coaches around. Right now, what is happening in the portal is beyond ridiculous. You can't just have these kids transferring. They're like mosquitoes. They just go from one arm or leg to another at the outdoor party in June because you didn't wear off. But that's what's going on, and it's just stupid. And I'll tell you what's going to happen. It's going to take an organized effort by the fans to just not show up to the games. Okay, you play your game, we'll play our game, and we'll also cut off the funding. That's how you will do it. You cut off the financial blood flow.
Well, here's a perfect example of how stupid it is. Everybody knows that Trey Mitchell is the glue guy at Kentucky this year. You take him and Reed Sheppard, and Reed Sheppard coming off the bench does everything. Great, best freshman in the SEC by far. But you got Trey Mitchell in the middle, 6'9", can play power forward, can play the 5. He can even step out and play the 3 if necessary because he's got the outside shot. He began his career at UMass. Then he transferred to Texas. Then he transferred to West Virginia. And now he's at Kentucky. He's at his 4th school. and he's been eligible every time. He's never sat out a year. And there's always been a hardship. I mean, like his dog died, and his dog got sick, and he needed to go to West Virginia because that was the only place that had a veterinarian that could handle his dog.
Yes.
And then he went to Kentucky because their podiatry school could deal with his ingrown toenails. And the NCAA every time said, well, okay. But the NCAA picks guys like that. And yet you go back to the football season, and for half a season, they denied a kid from Kent State to play at North Carolina. And the kid from Kent State wanted to come home, not so much to play at North Carolina. He never got in the transfer portal because he said, I just want to go play in the ACC. He wanted to play at North Carolina because his mother has cancer, and he wanted to be at a school where he could play football at a high level and be there while his mom's getting treated for cancer.
Yeah.
So what does the NCAA do? They hold him up for half a season. Great wide receiver, and they hold him up. And this is the part about the NCAA that is so that is the special kind of stupid. And that is, they'll let Trey Mitchell transfer 4 times. And they let then this kid who has a legitimate reason to transfer, they deny him.
Yeah.
It's, these people, if there was ever if North Korea ever decide, which has been threatening to shoot an ICBM at the United States, if they ever decide that they're going to do it, then the missile needs to go to Indianapolis and hit NCAA headquarters and blow it up. Something needs to happen. And Rob, you're right. It's time. We got to have a new organization. I think Nick Saban would be a great commissioner for the first new organization, at least for the football part of it.
Well, I'll say this, and let me put this out there. Brendan Martin just texted me. Click the subscribe button on the bottom right of your screen to get notifications when we post new content and also for the show. Thank you for that. I think the NCAA is find out that the fans are there's not much more people are going to take of this crap. You sit there and you got to have the portal, you got to have NIL. I totally get that. But how in the hell, when people can just quit and leave, you can't do that in business. You can't even do that in professional sports. So what in the hell are we preparing these kids for? Because they're going to get the hell beat out of them if they try that in real life. I know in business, you sign contracts and you've got to do your part. A contract works when both parties do their part. And this bull spit narrative, it's a lie that these athletes have just been abused and taken advantage of by these universities for decades is a bunch of crapola. That's not true. They are given and afforded opportunities that most people will never get or even couldn't even imagine. When you sign with Florida or Memphis or Arkansas, you name it, LSU, Ole Miss, whatever, you go there to get an education. I like the quote from the Auburn Creed. Athletics makes men strong. Studies make men wise. Character makes men great. And that stuff matters. We are not teaching anything. I mean, I've got 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls. I would never, ever in my wildest dreams tell them to act this way. I would say, fight it out, grind it out, keep on fighting. And when you feel like you're at the end of the rope, tie another knot in there and hang on and climb your ass out. Because what we are doing, we're idiots as adults, not you and me, but this narrative that came from this Ed Bohannon clown out there at UCLA, the basketball player on the video game. Okay, I'm a capitalist, but you also have rules within capitalism. There are rules on what you can charge people for interest. It's called usury, loan sharks. We have, you're allowing these student athletes, forget the fact that these universities have been around 150, 200, 250 years. They were there long before your little ass got there. What we are teaching and what we are building is a narcissist culture of spoiled, entitled brats. I mean, Audrey and I were watching Everybody Loves Raymond, and, they showed Raymond, what a wuss, trying to get his kid, it was probably 6, 7, 8 years old, out of bed to go to school. That's not an option. You grab him by his feet and throw him out of bed on the floor and get your ass to school. That's what we need to do. And these coaches, they're having to play the part of stupid in this comedy of theater. It's a Greek tragedy. You've got to demand accountability. I'm telling you what, Franz, we're going to fix it. The fans will fix it. You and Buddy and folks at, the Buddy Martin show, y'all talk about orange and blue bloods. The fans have got to demand that we fix it. You guys have always transferred, but what we've got right now, there's no accountability. If you don't have accountability for your actions, you're never going to learn. You're never going to grow. Right now, it's the hip thing to do. But that lie that these student athletes are taking advantage of, no, turn it around. They're taking advantage of these universities. Sure, coaches can come and go, but they've earned that right. John Brady, you know what he told me he made in his first coaching job in high school? $15,000 a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
He wasn't always, these coaches weren't always making millions of dollars. They were 19 at one time too. And they were scrambling and giving blood plasma to get beer money to go down to the beach, whatever. That's part of life. We're just kind of skipping. We're taking everybody from the back of the line and moving them up to the front without them having to pay their dues. College is supposed to be about education, not this crap.
Well, we can rail about it all we want to, but it's not going to change anything. The only way that the transfer portal, I wrote about this last week, and here's what the NCAA has got to do. Or whoever. First off, I think we need a new organization besides the NCAA. I don't think the NCAA could ever come up with a bright idea. No. With the NCAA, a good idea is dies of solitary confinement because
it dies 1,000 deaths.
Well, solitary confinement because it's just in a vacuum. But here's what needs to happen. I believe every conference needs to set a pay grade. Okay, like at Florida for basketball, let's say you got 13 on scholarship, fine. $1.3 million. Everybody gets $100,000. And that's true at Alabama. That's true at LSU, Auburn, all these places. The conference sets the pay scale. Then every player signs a contract. And here's the deal. If you want to transfer, you can do it after your sophomore year. You got to have been a place 2 years before you can transfer. Otherwise, you sit out a year.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Franz, hold that thought. We're going to take a break. Also think about when you sign a contract to join the Army or the Marine Corps. You have to fulfill an obligation. If colleges are there to educate and to teach you and to prepare you for life, then damn it, start teaching and educating and preparing people for life. What we're doing right now is a joke.
But it's college's fault. You've got these pointy heads who are, with PhD, and you know what PhD stands for, followed higher and deeper. The NCAA can't do anything without these pointy head bureaucrats who run universities doing it. And that's what's going on. We talk about, Well, we got to educate the kids. Well, fine. Let the people who actually make the decisions at the NCAA, let them live up to what they're supposed to be, and they don't do it.
They're not. Let's be honest, a lot of the colleges and universities around the country, in fact, most of them probably, they're as screwed up as the federal government.
More.
Yeah, and here we are wondering why we've got this portal mess. That's why I'm telling you, it's gonna blow up. We do need some crash and burns of these places where they pay a kid $1.5 million and he lays a bunch of eggs. We're going to have that happen. And we're going to tell you why. Wes Moore, hopefully going to be joining us in just a second. ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock. But Franz Beard, GatorBetMedia.com, GatorBetMedia.com. And the Buddy Martin Show is with us. Rob Browne here. We'll be right back for the final segment on this Monday morning of Sidelines.
Hey, y'all. It's Ainsley from Hewlett & Dunn. Just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the Horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, click the subscribe button on the bottom right hand of your screen to get notifications when we post new content. Franz Beard, all the stuff that's happening, it happens because adults allow it to happen. And we've got a cave-in culture that's trying to placate these whiny little brats and like they're the most important people in the world. They're not. And this is why we're in this situation, because we've got a bunch of pointed-headed elitists that run these universities. Not all of them are bad and stupid and incompetent, but a lot of them are. And the Ed Bohannon, whatever, the guy, UCLA basketball player, that narrative that came from, guess where? California, that these athletes are depraved and taken advantage of. They're not. Look at the value of a scholarship to Florida, LSU, Auburn, you name it. It's worth $800,000. It's worth a lot. Look, we'll fix this, fans. You know what? It's always darkest before dawn. It's getting really dark out there. So the sun will come up soon, but we'll fix the market's going to stop this because the fans are going to make it happen. Wes Moore, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock, joins us right now. Wes, man, we're talking about how crazy the world is with the portal guys coming and going. They stop by. They're kind of like mosquitoes, going from one arm or leg at a party in the summer in the Mississippi Delta, at least around Memphis and Parkin in the rice fields. They just go from one to the next and I think I'll stop here for a few weeks and then I'm going to transfer here. It's crazy. But I want to talk to you first about Arkansas basketball right now, kind of the state of the program, what you know is going on, why they're doing what they're doing, because you cover them also with Fox Sports Channel 16 in Little Rock. You cover high school sports as well all over the natural state.
Well, it's pretty simple with the basketball team right now. They're not good offensively and they're not good defensively. And so when you combine that, you have a team that's not good. It's strange because Eric Musselman, every one of his teams have been known for being a very good defensive team. And thus far in the season, he hasn't been able to find the guys that can play defense for him and that can win for him. It's very difficult to watch. Guys, South Carolina is not a more talented team than Arkansas. But you watch that game and you see South Carolina defensively get after Arkansas and do what Arkansas wants to do. And then you watch South Carolina on offense, and their third best scorer was out. Michi Johnson, their all-SEC guard, was held to 8 points, and they still put up 70-something points on Arkansas because of the way they share the ball. They move the ball and find an open shooter or an open cutter for a layup. It was a masterpiece what South Carolina did to Arkansas at Bud Walton Arena. It was stunning, honestly. After Arkansas got that Tuesday night win over A&M, you get College Game Day announcing they're coming to Bud Walton Arena for the Kentucky game. It was all set up for Arkansas to go on a little bit of a run. I had bought in. I thought, okay, they kind of figured it out against A&M. Things are going to get better. And then they came out, and it was same old, honestly. It's what we've seen pretty much all season long. And it's disturbing, and it's frustrating. And Coach Musselman's frustrated. Look, he knows what's wrong, but he just can't. I guess he doesn't have the guys that can do what he wants to do this year. I hate to say it's the portal was a failure this year for Musselman because the season's not over yet, and we've seen him pull out the rabbit from out of the hat year after year after year as the team gets better. But we just haven't seen that indication yet that this team is getting better and they're going to turn the corner.
It's a point guard problem that you have. You don't have that guy on the floor. And this is from what I've seen up close and personal when Arkansas was here playing the Gators. And I've watched them now, I think three of their SEC games I've watched on TV. And they do not have the point guard. They don't have that guy in the middle of the court that can make everybody better, get them the ball, take charge of this, and late in the shot clock knows what to do with the basketball in his hands. And they don't have that guy. It's like you got 5 guys on the court and all 5 are playing their own game.
Yep. Yeah, I call him Ernie Els all the time. Ellis is the transfer guard, and he's a scorer. He's a guy who can get to the basket and find his own shot and get his own shot. Another point guard they brought in was Keon Minifield from Washington. Remember, he was the SEC Player of the Week not too long ago when he had 30 points and 4 assists. And, man, it was his second or third game back from becoming eligible. And we thought, okay, this is the piece that they were missing, that point guard that they were missing. But since then, defensively, he's been a liability, and he hasn't been looking to create for others as much as for himself, to your point. And they're searching right now. They've given Ellis the start the last 2 games. Last week against South Carolina on Saturday, the team had 8 assists. 8. Mm-hmm. South Carolina had 20. And on 28 made baskets. That's sharing the ball. That is movement. That is guys that are distributing. Mm-hmm. Arkansas doesn't have that right now. And you're exactly right. That is one of the big parts offensively with this team.
Well, you look at what's going on. Everybody's got NIL. Is that an issue in the locker room? Some guys, I mean, in pro sports, it's a given. A lot of the players on the team make more than the head coach does. But a lot of guys make more than their teammates do. That's again, it's pro sports. Is that maybe a problem in the locker room? Is there something wrong with the chemistry? Because I'm a big admirer, got a ton of respect for Eric Musselman. Love the way he coaches. He's passionate. His teams play their ass off. They started off slow a couple of times, made it to the Elite 8, but this is a different feel on this team on top of what you've already talked about.
Coach has been asked about that, and he's even said it on his own a couple of times, that he felt like this was one of the closest teams he's been involved with. That the locker room's great. They get along with each other. They go do things with each other. You know, they had that trip to, Georgia, then Florida, where they stayed out on the road. They didn't come back to Fayetteville because it was a Saturday, Tuesday game. And we had Devo Davis on the show, and he talked about how great it was just for all the guys to hang out in between games and working out, studying, lifting weights, and just, being together and bonding even more. I do not think it's a chemistry problem. I just think it's maybe chemistry on the floor, but not chemistry in the locker room.
You're right about that. But again, it comes back to this: what happens on the floor? Why aren't they producing on the floor? You can't produce on the floor when you got 5 guys, each of them doing their own thing. You got to have guys that are willing to say, I got an open 12-foot shot, but my buddy here, my teammate, is open from 4. What are the odds that he makes the shot compared to what I make, what I do? And Arkansas doesn't have that. Brazil, they mentioned it the other night on the broadcast. They said, he drove and he dunked, and he said, this is what he needs to be doing instead of sitting out there trying to just always jack up another 3. And they're so right about that. The guy's got the talent, but it's like, all right, I'm just going to do what I got to do, and to hell with everything else. Doesn't pass the ball, doesn't do these other things. And he's an enormous talent, no question about it. But is he an enormous teammate? That's the real question.
Brazil's been I would probably say the biggest disappointment of the year. This is a guy that was an all SEC preseason guy, started out the year projected to be a lottery pick. He is not a lottery pick. I don't know if he's even a first round pick right now, the way he's playing. The basket you talked about the other day against South Carolina was his only basket of the game. I think he's gone 2 straight games at least. I'll have to go back and look now that I'm thinking about it. Without an offensive rebound. I mean, he's 7 foot tall. It's hard to get an offensive rebound when you're hanging out at the 3-point line. He's got to become more of a slasher, a guy who's diving to the basket, who's working without the ball. Instead, he just stands out there with his hands up, ready for a pass to take a 3-point shot. And that's not what they need right now. They need a physical presence. They need him inside getting defensive rebounds. They did a better job. Guys, the keys to this game, South Carolina crashes the offensive boards and Meechie Johnson. Yeah. They held Meechie Johnson to 8 points, and they won second chance points, I believe, 15-4. If you'd have told me before the game, I'd have said Arkansas wins this game easily.
Yeah.
But it was the secondary players, the role players for South Carolina. I think they had 4 or 5 guys in double digits. And then the porous offense from Arkansas. And I almost wonder if that was part of the plan. Once their number 3 scorer was out, you take out Meechie Johnson and you make the other guys beat you. And maybe that's what the game plan was. And you know what? The other guys beat them.
Yeah. Look at the world we live in right now. Wes Moore, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz, and Little Rock is on with us now. Always love having you on with us. I'm going to throw up some figures here. Top 5 NIL college athletes. And y'all tell me if they're worth this. Bronny James. I'm sure that had nothing to do with the fact that his father is LeBron. Southern Cal, apparently his NIL deal is $6.1 million. Shedeur Sanders, $3.8 million at Colorado. Livy Dunn, $3.2 million, the gymnast at LSU. Arch Manning is 4th highest paid, a backup quarterback. He will be again this year, $2.9 million at Texas. And 5th on the list is Caleb Williams, Heisman Trophy winner, who this year led his team to maybe 6 or 7 wins, but he got his $2.6 million. I think that right there is why we're going to – you talk about some – I'm not saying these are all crash and burns, but of all the one on there that's done the most to deserve what she's is Livy Dunn, the gymnast. That girl has her own brand of clothing. I mean, that's what NIL, but she was doing Instagram and all that stuff beforehand. Wes, I'm going to throw this at you. You're in TV as well. Fox Channel 16 in Little Rock. You cover the high school, the college. Are you hearing these kind of conversations when you're talking to high school athletes about it's no longer, I love Arkansas or I love Texas or I love Oklahoma. It's all about the NIL. Is that pretty much all they care about now?
Here in Arkansas, you love the Razorbacks. And so it's not as much as a factor. Yeah, of course, in their mind, they know being an Arkansas kid, you're going to have Arkansas opportunities right away.
Yeah.
You don't have to necessarily create a name for yourself before getting paid, that you've already kind of created that name.
Yeah.
There's some, and, I look at Joseph Pinion, that plays for the Razorbacks. He's from Morrilton. He has a clothing deal with an NIL store out of Conway. That's because he is a local legend and, was able to. Devo Davis, he comes on our show. He's from Jacksonville, Guatney Chevrolet out of Jacksonville, where his grandmother worked, and Devo kind of grew up in the lobby. They sponsor him. So that's the benefits of the local NIL. See, I take it the other way with the 5 that you mentioned. All 5 of those have a huge presence on social media. I think they're getting paid for the name, image, and likeness. That is what it's all about, because they have already created, because of maybe their dads or who their family, they've created that name, that image, that likeness, and they're getting paid for that. What I don't like are the guys that have 0 followers, that don't have a name, are getting paid millions of dollars just to come to the school and play. I think that the recruiting and using the, hey, here's what we got in our stash, we'll give you to come here and play or to transfer here. Yeah. I don't like that, and I think that's wrong, and it's supposed to be illegal. But if you have already created a name, image, and likeness and have tons of followers on social media, that's what these companies are paying for. So I don't really have a problem with the 5 that you mentioned, because that's what this is all about. That is why you're supposed to be able to get paid because of that.
Well, that's exactly it's a diametrically opposing argument, and you just nailed it. This is, and I agree with you, because I'm a right-wing capitalist patriot. I totally agree. Livy Dunn did that before there was NIL, and you're right about the social media, and it's a lot of work to do what they're doing. I have the problem with the paying them to come before they've done a damn thing in college, before they've done anything. You're right. You cannot put the cart before the horse. Here's something else interesting, guys. Alabama golfer yesterday became the first amateur to win the PGA Tour event since 1991. PGA says he will not receive the winner's purse. That's the way the old school works. Look, I'm all about making money, working hard. I'm a capitalist. But remember, in the old rules, you're an amateur, you don't get to collect that purse. That's going to be, I'm sure, a topic of conversation on the golf side. But Wes, that's a cool story about the guys. And we have a friend of ours in our hunting club over here in Park, and Brian Linsing. There's a great electrician over in Russellville, Arkansas. When he went to Subiaco, you're familiar with Subiaco, aren't you, Wes?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, I remember friends of mine, they would go up there to get their heads right and do some work up there in Subiaco. But that's a cool story about Devo Davis and these other people. I didn't think about it. And Franz, what Wes just said, these are in-state kids, and Missouri even has a law that if you sign in December in the early signing period, and you're an in-state kid, you sign with the University of Missouri, you can start receiving NIL. Okay, so let's be honest. No one is being honest, really. I mean, Wes is, you are, I am. It is pay for play is what it is for most of these kids. Now, they can't sign anything till they get on campus, but it's pay for play.
Well, here's one way to solve problems like in football, with the opt-outs and everything like this. And that is you sign a contract, and if you opt out of a bowl game, then it's in the contract, and every league needs to put it in there. If you sign a contract and you opt out for the bowl game, then you owe the school everything they've ever paid for you. Everything. I don't have a problem with kids making money. What I have a problem with is they're getting an opportunity and they don't. And when they opt out and things like this, it's a slap in the face of the trainers, of the coaches, the assistant coaches, all these people that invested, the tutors, all these people that invested in the kid. They are suddenly saying, okay, screw you. Yeah. I'm getting mine. I'm opting out of the bowl game because my agent says, I got to, because he can get me a new Lincoln Navigator to drive, and it's better than the current Altima I'm getting out of my NIL deal.
Yeah. Well, Wes, I know we're about out of time, but another thing is and I think in the military and some of the special forces units, you have to be in the military for X number of years and then sign a contract to be in for X more years before they allow you to even come a part of their training program. So, how can you, as a coach, Wes, I'm curious in your encounters, how can you as a coach trust these people anymore? That's what I'm concerned about.
Well, the one thing I would do is make sure on the NIL deal is there's one, maybe backload it if you can do that. Look, there are different rules for this, and you backload it to maybe you get half of your money or a big chunk of the money after the January 1st or a January 15th game, so that ensures that they stay a part of the team to get that one last big check and play in the bowl game. But then then you open the door for the mysterious hamstring injury. I can't practice. This thing is, it's bad. The doctor's like, man, it's not. There's not any swelling back there on that hamstring. What is going on? He's like, I don't know. It just doesn't feel right. So anyway, I guess there's always a way out of it. But to me, there could be a way to entice these guys to play in that bowl game by getting that last NIL check.
I agree. Wes, what are y'all talking about on your show today? And we always appreciate you taking the time to join us, as well as Franz Beer to the Buddy Martin Show and GatorBaitMedia.com and all of our guests, sponsors, and listeners. But I know you got a show coming up in about 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah, we're going to dive into the NFL playoffs, 4 fantastic games, and, of course, look ahead to the 2 big games coming up this weekend. And unfortunately, we're going to have to do it. We're going to have to talk about Arkansas basketball. It wasn't a very fun post-game show Saturday night, Saturday afternoon. But you know what? We got to talk about it, and we got to see if there's a way to fix this thing and try to figure it out for old Coach Muss and try to help him out. Because we got a lot of coaches listening that want to give us their opinion. So we're going to be talking about this basketball team too.
We'll be watching you on the news tonight, Fox Sports, Channel 16 in Little Rock, one of the best and nicest people out there, Wes Moore, as is Franz, and all of our guests. We'll see you tomorrow, folks. Have a great weekend. We are out of here.